Okay, class. The purpose of this video is to help those in class that are struggling with the shading technique. Like I said at the beginning of the lesson, I encourage you not to use your finger to to shade, to smear. Like I said, that's going to end up leaving oils on the paper. That's going to make the paper kind of yellow and make the drawing look dirty. So remember what I said in class was to use hand pressure to create lights and darks. And you see here I'm using just a number 2 pencil, yellow pencil you would use for like an exam. But I'm starting to shade inside the iris. Notice I'm going from center out, kind of like in a radial pattern. Um, it's a hatching method, and I'm doing that because I want to leave gaps in between so that it gets that illusion of the detail of the color of the eye that you see in the iris. Notice I'm looking back at my reference photo a lot. I'm looking back to see where my value's at, where I should be going lighter, where I should be going darker. I notice a lot of you in class are not looking at your reference photo. You're just kind of winging it. If you do that, your eye's not going to look natural. You need an actual reference to see where things land. So here I am shading again. If you notice, I'm looking back to see where things are getting darker. So where it gets darker, I'm coming back in, applying more pencil, more pressure. Notice I'm kind of right now going in a little circle technique. That's what I talked to you guys about in class. That's going to eliminate some of those white spots you're not going to want. It gets rid of that graininess. Okay, so notice that I am still leaving a lot of white of the paper. And that's what I've been stressing in class a lot. That if it is a very bright value where there is no shadow, it's just a glare, you must use the white of the paper. That's going to make a cleaner looking drawing for you. I know a lot of you like to just smear into those areas thinking, okay, well, there's some kind of light or some kind of shadow there, and you make everything gray. If you do that, the drawing looks very, very dirty. You want to kind of eliminate that. So if you look at what I'm doing right now, I'm only applying pressure where I believe it's getting dark. I'm going in very small circles to make sure that I get rid of that graininess. Look at the iris that I have now. The reason why it looks like the white's popping really bright is because it's the white of the paper. If I were to go in there and make it like a very light gray, it wouldn't look that bright. So try to avoid putting any pencil in those areas that you see in the iris. Okay, now look back at what I'm doing now. I'm still using that hatching method to make sure that the iris looks like it's round, that it has those little creases that you see inside of the iris. Okay, and I'm constantly checking that reference photo. All right, I'm coming back, adding more value. And that's what I talked about in class a lot too, is it's better to work light to dark. That way, if you do mess up and it's light, you can erase it or you can go on top of it and make it darker. So I tend to work very light at first, just very, very light. That way I can kind of look back and decide, okay, this is too dark or this is too light. And I can keep applying more pressure to it to make sure that it ends up being the value that I want it to be. So right now I'm just kind of looking over the whole drawing, making sure that what needs to be dark is dark and what needs to be light is staying light, or it's staying the white of the paper. I'm trying not to dip into areas I shouldn't dip into. Okay, now I'm just kind of stepping back, looking at the reference, looking at the drawing, making sure that things are lining up. Every once in a while, you just need to stop and look. Some of y'all fall into a groove and you just keep drawing, 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 and you're not checking your reference to your drawing, and it ends up looking completely off and you're frustrated about it. But you have to stop and take little breaks and look at what you're drawing. Okay, so now I'm adding the eyelashes. Honestly, I should have waited a little longer and put the value in on the skin around the like the cheek and the top of the eyebrow. But I kind of jumped ahead so that you could see how I do it, so this video wouldn't be so long. But if you look, it's a very strong, confident hatch. I'm shading in the bottom where it meets the actual eyelid, and then I hatch it quickly upward. It's still kind of at a diagonal, and when I hatch it up, I kind of flick it to the right, so it has kind of a diagonal slope to it, and then it breaks off, so it has kind of a natural looking eyelash like what you see in the reference photo. Okay, now I'm coming back and shading in areas I believe that should be darker. That corner of the eye is pretty dark. So I'm coming back and making little circles, getting rid of that graininess. Okay, now I'm doing the bottom one. I'm hatching it diagonally to the left, but then I pull it down so it looks like it's breaking off. And that's what that reference photo looks like. So it's a quick, confident hatch. And I want you to pay attention to the direction that I'm hatching in. If the eyelash is growing to the left of the iris, then you are hatching diagonally to the left. Same thing if you were doing the eyelashes on the top. It would still be a hatch pointing towards the left. Typically, the eyelashes do not start growing straight until you get to the middle of the eye, where the iris is at, where the dark point of it is at. So you want to be careful not to start moving those eyelashes in the wrong direction. I've walked in class and seen a lot of people create these very cartoon looking eyelashes because you believe that it's just a fan. You're not looking at your reference photo. So please make sure you're paying attention to the way those individual little hairs are actually growing. All right, so if you look here, I'm actually coming back now, and I'm going over some of my hatches to make them thicker, make them darker. And that's another thing I noticed in class is that a lot of you are just kind of fanning them out, leaving them too spaced out. They're too gapped out. So I would recommend going back at your drawing, looking at it, even if you think you're done, looking at it and seeing what you could add to it. Some of the eyelashes overlap. Some of them cross each other. That's going to it's going to give you a more realistic look. So look back at your drawing, see where you can actually overlap them, cross them. And if you just notice right now, I erased that corner. I have the bad habit of putting my hand directly on top of my drawing. I highly recommend you guys either put a sheet of paper under your palm or you just try to keep your hand away from your drawing. That's just a bad habit I've been trying to break. So if you notice now, I kind of slid my hand over to the right a little bit so I'm not smearing my drawing. And once again, that puts oils on your paper, so you don't want that. So either put a sheet of paper under it or just try to keep your hand away from it. All right, so now you look, the eyelashes themselves, I'm starting to go directly up vertically because I'm at the center of the eye. As soon as you get a little to the right of that iris, you can start hatching them diagonally to the right. But look at your reference photo. Be aware of how long those eyelashes are. Be aware of where they're crossing. That's going to give you a more natural looking eyelid or eye. A lot of you are just, like I said earlier, you're just guessing, just doing it just to get it done. And that's the number one thing I stress in class. Don't rush your art. Drawing takes patience. Everyone starts off at different levels. Some people are more naturally gifted when it comes to drawing. Some people have to work at it. But everyone's capable of drawing. It's just who's going to have the patience to actually sit down and practice it. Who's going to actually try to build on their skills. And it's the same thing. If you're very talented and you think that you know how to draw very well and you don't practice it, you slowly start to lose that skill. It's just like anything else, just like a sport. If you stop doing it, you're not going to be as good as you were at once. So if you look at the way I'm hatching now, on the bottom, I'm kind of gapping them up a little bit, and I am crossing some of them. I'm overlapping them. I'm close to the center of the iris right now, so I'm starting to be aware that I need to make my eyelashes grow straight down instead of diagonal. Okay, remember, it's nice, confident hatches. You don't want to keep going over it really scratchy because then it's not going to look like an eyelash. They need to be nice, clean lines. All right, notice there that I doubled up on a couple of them so they look darker. Okay, I'm going straight down because I'm at the center of the iris. And notice where the hair is starting. I'm starting at the very edge of that eyelid. Eyelashes grow on the edge of the eyelid. They're not actually inside of the eye. So I've seen a lot of you kind of push them inside of the eye. That's unnatural, and that's how I know you're not looking at your reference photo. Look at that reference photo. It's a very up close and detailed photograph, and it shows you where that hair grows out of. Okay, so now I'm at the right of the iris. So notice I'm hatching diagonally to the right, but I'm still kind of flicking my wrist down to kind of have that hair break. That's going to just give you a more natural look. And I'm kind of looking at areas that I believe are too spaced out, too gappy. Like I said, the reference photo is just there for reference. It doesn't have to be exactly like what you see in the reference photo. If you look at mine, the iris of my eye is slightly larger than what is in the reference photo. The eyelashes are not exactly in the same direction that the reference photo has, but what the reference photo is used for is to have a visual representation of what that eye should look like. That way you're not guessing. That way you have something that's a little more natural looking. Okay, so if you look here, I was kind of shading in towards the center because it's really dark, and then flicking right back up like I have been. Okay, since I'm working on the top, they are hatched diagonally to the right. And it's very single strokes, very confident. That's the only way you're going to get nice, clean eyelashes. Do not go over it too many times. Don't try to go slow. That's going to give you a very dirty looking eyelash. That's not what you want. Okay, so that's typically how I finish this eye. Hopefully it helped everyone in class.